I guess first thing, Matt, we'd like to talk with you about, kind of a curious twist on exploit kits.
Sure, this one was pretty fascinating in my opinion. So there's a noted malware researcher who goes by the name of Caffeine, and his blog is called Malware Don't Need Coffee, and it's always a good read if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of exploit kits. Now, he wrote recently about a very interesting one that doesn't seem to target the user's browser so much as it targets the small home and office routers and some webcams attached to the network.
We're seeing an awful lot.
A lot of that Internet of Insecure Things, and this is the intersection of those two worlds. So apparently he's seen multiple versions of this code. The first one was not obfuscated, and you can tell by what, just looking at the code, what it was doing, which basically forcing your browser to make requests, and it's called Crosssite request forgery, where a website forces your browser to load some sort of other page that you didn't directly request. Now this is just how the web works when you load a web page. It could load a whole bunch of other images and other code, but this isn't specifically intended to make malicious requests. So what it'll do is it'll try and figure out what sort of devices you have on your home network. It uses a library for WebRTC, which is kind of a neat trick, to try and figure out what the inside and outside IPs are for your LAN and your WAN, and then based on those IP ranges, figure out what it thinks is the gateway, and then start bombarding it with requests to see, is this a Linksys router, is this a Netgear router, and then based on that, try and reset your DNS settings so that all of your DNS requests pass through a malicious server. So the first version was pretty easy to read, had a small set of exploits. The second version actually uses a JavaScript crypto library to encode the malware in AES, which is pretty neat. It also has a huge set of other requests, and it sort of fingerprints routers by different files that are in it, because most home routers have a web interface, and if it has like a specific GIF file or a certain path that's specific to it, you can tell what the device is by one of those.
Wow.
So it's a pretty well put together piece of malware in my opinion, an interesting read, and a reminder that for Internet of Things vulnerabilities, it doesn't always have to be an exposed external port that you're taking advantage of. It could be something that you can trick someone's browser into attacking for you.
Right. A couple things here. One is that it's interesting to see the evolution here. We've seen a lot of these small device exploits previously, and they've been really basic scripts, just like shell scripts and doing some really basic things. Now we're starting to see some sophistication here. And did you say it was obscuring the code as well?
Yep, the second version that he saw was obscuring the code itself. I mean, the way
obfuscating.
Yeah, the same way that you'd see other exploit kits be packed. They're using a JavaScript library for AES to do that. So they encrypt the entire thing, and then they base64 encode it, and then it gets picked apart later.
Right. So there's definitely some evolution here. And I guess what we've seen also before, it's generally a lot of brute force password guessing. I mean, this kind of suggests that either it's targeted password guessing, or there might be other exploits that they know about specific devices that is they fingerprint and then go for specific things.
It's a little bit of both, actually. Some of them are directly, like there's some routers have like a single config page you can request that'll give away the password, then they'll use that in the next request. Some of them will just try the default passwords that are known for that version of the router. There's a Linksys router in here where it tries a whole bunch of different default passwords.
And I guess the other point that's insinuated here is that if the device isn't secure on its own, just the fact that you're within a local network doesn't protect you. That is, as a sort of the insider's point of view, if you don't have it just the fact that your services aren't offered to the internet on the LAN side, or on the WAN side, your LAN side doesn't necessarily protect you. So you need to really actually have a good password, good protections, good patching on the devices.
And anything that can be hit through a web request can be accessed using this method.
So,
and then, like I said, not just your router. I mean, if you've got any sort of other Internet of Things, like a webcam that's sitting inside your network, maybe if you've got a secondary access point, that's also potentially vulnerable.
Printers, network attached
Printers
storage.
are a good example. Yeah,
all kinds of fun devices inside your network probably that you assume are safe because you have a small trusted home network of, you've got WPA encryption or whatever, nobody can get in there, but this is someone who's roguely, compromised via an indirect type of method here. So
right, and that's one of the reasons why, just having it on your own internal LAN has never been, you know, a real good way of protecting it. It limits the attack surface a little bit, but the devices need to be secured on their own, and that's always been a concern.
Right. I mean, it really suggests that there need to be some sort of set of safety guidelines for these devices that are sold for connecting to networks, and particularly if they're supposed to have, or at least insinuate, some sort of a security function that they're performing. That is, it doesn't matter what's around it if the devices themselves that you're connecting to it aren't good and secure.